There's a strange psychological shift that happens in relationships that most men never notice, until it's already too late. At first, being constantly available feels like a strength. You reply fast. You show interest. You make her feel chosen every single moment of the day. But then something changes. She starts taking longer to reply. The energy subtly shifts. The warmth doesn't disappear, but it becomes inconsistent. And here's the part that catches most men off guard. The very thing you think is building connection can quietly start feeling like emotional pressure on her side. Not because she doesn't like you, but because psychology doesn't respond well to constant access without space. So the real question is this: when does being available stop feeling like love and start feeling like emotional weight she didn't agree to carry? Pause. In this video, you're going to understand the hidden psychological line between healthy connection and emotional overexposure. We'll break down why too much availability can create pressure instead of attraction, how it affects her nervous system and perception of you, and why space is not distance. It's actually what allows desire to breathe. This isn't about playing games or acting unavailable. It's about understanding human psychology, attachment patterns, and emotional pacing, the same principles studied in modern relationship psychology and behavioral science. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how attraction is actually maintained, and why sometimes doing less creates more emotional connection than doing everything. Imagine this. A man starts talking to a woman he really likes. He replies instantly every time. Morning, noon, night, he's always there. No gaps, no silence, no uncertainty. At first she feels important, seen, prioritized. But after a while, something shifts. She starts feeling slightly overwhelmed, even if she can't explain why. This is what psychologists call the availability paradox. When access is too easy and constant, the brain stops registering it as something meaningful. Desire needs contrast. Without contrast, everything feels flat. Practical truth here. It's not about disappearing or creating confusion. It's about not flooding her emotional space. Let conversations breathe. Let moments end naturally instead of forcing continuity. Because when you're always on, you unintentionally remove anticipation, the very ingredient attraction depends on. And once anticipation dies, pressure quietly takes its place, which leads directly into something deeper. There's a subtle moment in early attraction where she stops feeling like she's interacting with you and starts feeling like she's managing your emotional presence. She might still reply, still engage, still smile, but internally, something changes. Every notification from you doesn't feel like excitement anymore. It feels like an expectation waiting on her response. This is emotional boundary collapse. It happens when availability turns into responsibility. From a psychological standpoint, humans are wired to avoid perceived obligation in social bonding. When interaction feels like a task instead of a choice, emotional resistance builds. And here's the practical shift. You don't need to withdraw affection. You just need to stop making yourself emotionally always on call. Don't turn your presence into pressure. Let her choose moments of connection instead of feeling like she has to manage constant engagement. And when that space returns, so does curiosity. But there's another layer most men never see. When conversations are constant, deep and continuous, it can create something misleading: emotional acceleration. It feels like intimacy is building fast. You share stories, you talk late at night, you open up quickly. But psychologically, intimacy isn't just disclosure. It's also time plus separation, plus re-engagement. Without pauses, the brain doesn't process emotional depth. It just processes volume. This creates what we call illusion intimacy, a feeling of closeness without the foundation of real emotional pacing. And for her nervous system, this can quietly become draining. Not because of you personally, but because emotional intensity without rhythm feels consuming. Practical adjustment. Allow emotional pauses. Let silence do its job. Let experiences settle before adding more layers. Because intimacy isn't built by constant contact. It's built by meaningful return. And here's where things take a sharper turn. Let's pause for a moment. If being more available automatically created stronger attraction, then the most responsive, most present, most attentive men would always be the most desired. But reality doesn't work that way. So here's a question most men never ask themselves. Why do people often miss someone more after they stop being constantly accessible? It's not absence itself, it's psychological space. And that changes everything we're about to talk about next. There's a difference between being emotionally present and occupying emotional space continuously. When there's no space between interactions, her mind never gets to re-anchor your presence internally. You become background noise instead of a distinct emotional event. Scarcity of emotional space doesn't mean scarcity of care. It means allowing her mind to reset between experiences with you. From cognitive psychology, the brain values what it has to re-access. If something is always present, it loses definition. So instead of filling every silence, you let silence exist. Instead of extending every conversation, you let it close naturally. This creates contrast, and contrast restores emotional weight. Practically, this means you don't chase conversational continuity. You don't try to keep it alive out of fear it might fade. Because ironically, that effort is what often causes the fade in the first place. And once space is restored, something interesting happens. Her curiosity returns. But now we get to the emotional core of why this dynamic matters so much. There's a hidden emotional burden that can form when a woman starts to feel that your emotional state depends heavily on her responses. Even if you never say it directly, it can be felt. She senses urgency. She senses dependence. She senses that your emotional stability is tied to her engagement. And psychologically, that creates subtle anxiety, not attraction. Because now, every interaction carries weight. Every reply feels like it has consequences. This is where many men unknowingly shift from connection into emotional expectation. The practical shift is simple but powerful. You stop making her responsible for your emotional regulation. You stay grounded regardless of her pace, her tone, or her timing. When she feels that your emotional world is stable without her constant input, pressure dissolves. And when pressure dissolves, attraction can breathe again. Because attraction cannot exist in emotional obligation. It needs freedom. And that brings us to the final layer. Attraction is not constant comfort. It's not total predictability. It's not uninterrupted access. It's rhythm. Psychologically, human attraction thrives on a balance between connection and space, certainty and curiosity, presence and absence. This is often called emotional tension, not conflict, but tension in the sense of pull. When you are too available, that tension collapses. Everything becomes emotionally flat. No wondering, no missing, no re-engagement cycle. But when there is natural space, the mind starts doing something very important. It begins to value what is not currently present. This is not about manipulation. It's about respecting the nervous system's need for rhythm. Practical truth: you don't hold back to create desire. You simply stop overextending your presence into every available moment. You let attraction breathe in cycles instead of forcing it into a straight line. And when you do that consistently, the dynamic changes completely. Most men think attraction is built by doing more attention, more messages, more effort, more presence. But emotional psychology tells a different story. Attraction is not built in constant fullness. It's built in rhythm, space, and return. And when you're too available, what you're really doing without realizing it is removing the emotional contrast that makes connection feel alive. Because love, in its healthiest form, doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like choice. She should feel like she wants to reach you, not like she's managing access to you. And you should feel like your presence is something you offer from stability, not something you give away to secure closeness. When both people feel free inside the connection, something powerful happens. The connection becomes lighter, deeper, and far more real. That's the part most people never understand. If this resonated with you, it probably means you've already experienced moments where things felt like they were slipping, even when you were trying your best. And I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever noticed a relationship shift when you became less available, even slightly? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them. And if you want the next step in understanding this dynamic, the next video goes even deeper into why emotional overinvestment changes how women unconsciously evaluate long-term attraction, and how to reset it without playing games. Because the real goal isn't distance, it's balance. And once you understand balance, you stop chasing connection and start building it in a way that actually lasts, because the strongest attraction is never forced, it's felt.